Welcome everyone to the Proven Knowledge Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Church. I'm a music producer from Northeast Ohio. I began this weekly interview series to give you different perspectives from artists, producers, engineers, and other individuals in the music industry. In each episode, we touch on not only what has helped the person succeed, but we also touch on what has shaped them into the person that they are today. I hope you're able to gain some real proven knowledge from the show, and that it helps elevate you on your own journey to success as well. Let's get into it. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 225 here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. Today I welcomed Il Al, based in Phoenix, Arizona. I discovered Il Al via the Beatcast, which he's a founder of. The Beatcast is a weekly sample challenge that has run since 2020. Basically, they have a whole bunch of producers come in. They give them a sample, you flip it, and they judge the best ones at the end of the week. I ended up coming in like midway through season 4 this past spring. And it was such a great experience, such a cool time. So I wanted to have Al on the show today to discuss, the Beatcast, but also his own music as well. He talked about, coming up throughout the 90s and the early 2000s, being involved in not just the hip hop community, but the music community as well. He talked about, his different influences. His brothers were both involved in music as well. He talked about his experience as an MC and also as a beat maker and how he's kind of combined the two worlds to help make a Beatcast. He also shouted out a lot of the different members of the Beatcast team and really just what the community means to him. And I'm just, grateful that, I was able to stumble upon the platform and to be involved. And I'm super excited to see what they do moving forward. And I hope you guys enjoy this one. A really cool episode we did this week. Without further ado, let's get into it. So welcome everyone to episode 225 here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. Today, very excited to have this guy on the show, producer, DJ, founder of the Beatcast, founder of Avenue of the Arts, Il Al. How you doing, man?
Good. How you doing?
Doing great. And like I said, thanks for agreeing to be on the show. I pretty much got connected with the Beatcast in, I think, March or April, and been keeping up with what you've been doing. And, I'm thrilled to have you here. So, to start off every episode, we have the guest give some background on, how did you get into music? Like, how long have you been doing it? And just some basic info for those that might not know you and what you do.
So I got into music. It must have been around the late 80s, early 90s. Both of my older brothers one of them is still a musician, but both of them at the time were musicians. My oldest brother was like opening for like the Gin Blossoms and stuff out here in Arizona, and like, doing a little bit of like gigging around town. My other brother, James, same kind of thing, was opening and then started touring with a band. And they would have, drum machines, especially my oldest brother. Back then, if you didn't want to lug a drummer around, you used a drum machine predominantly just to fill in for the drummer, Yeah. And or like a backing machine during practice, because, a lot of times the drummer's not coming to practice. Yeah. And so he had the TR-707, the Roland TR-707. And so he ended up giving me that in this Zenith mic, this recorded mic. And skipping forward a little bit, I used to mess around on that. I met this dude, Soup. That's what we called him. His name's Chris, but we call him Soup. And met him in high school. We were like in on-campus suspension, like on Saturday or something, like, one of those Saturday suspensions. And it's stupid. You have to just go in and you sit in the cafeteria with like all the other kids who got in trouble, and you just have to sit there and like read or whatever. Yeah. And I heard this must have been 93, maybe 92. And in Arizona, in Phoenix anyways, not a lot of people had heard about Wu-Tang yet. That was like a name that was not a household name. No one knew what the hell that was. And I heard him listening to Wu-Tang, which would have been underground at the time. I hadn't quite hit Fab Five Freddy yet. And so as soon as OSS was all out, I stopped him and I'm like, "Are you listening to Wu-Tang?" And he's like, "Yeah, man." We connected on that vibe. Turned out he had these 2 belt-driven turntables at his house. and a Tascam 4-track recorder that he would just record mixes, with his turntables. I know in the beginning you introduced me and you said DJ. Actually, I was never a DJ. I wish.
Oh.
More of an MC producer, but I've dabbled here and there. But he was the DJ. I was the rapper, as it were, to do a Fresh Prince quote. And so we used to, with my TR-707, his 4-track Tascam recorder, and the belt drivens, we would put together these horrible rap songs, that we thought were cool. And after a while, I thought they were good enough to start selling. So then I realized there's some money in this. I was like, doing little house party gigs as like a youngin', and then started selling cassette tapes that I would record at Guitar Center on their cassette tape. They have this big old demo thing of like, I can't remember what it was, but you could put a tape in, it would make a bunch of tapes for you. You put your main tape in. And I would just sell those around town out of a briefcase. And from there, it just kept going.
Yeah. So that's about 30 years plus at this point.
Yeah, because then later on it got a little more serious with, you mentioned Avenue and stuff, but I won't get ahead. But when you do that kind of stuff, as and you're sort of amateur with it, but you notice that you're getting a response, and people are like spending their money on your stuff. And then like just locally having a little bit of a buzz because of the cassette tapes. Because at that time, burning a CD cost thousands of dollars, that wasn't a thing. Yeah. And so you'd make these tapes and I had a little bit of a buzz going. So I'm like, this might be something, Yeah. And kind of kept going with it until it ended up being a little more like a career for a while.
Yeah. Well, I always like to ask people that have at least like 20 or 30 years doing it, what was it like when things started to go digital, like when iTunes came out, things like that, and it kind of started to shift away from just all the physical media. Like, how did that go for you in your career and your experience? Was it like a difficulty, or did you just kind of adapt as you went and just kind of continue to do your own thing?
It's funny, as the question was coming off, it seemed like you're like, so what was it like before electricity?
Before that, yeah.
What was it like when you had to make your own plastic to create the CD? Well, when things went from tape to compact disc, it was a big jump. And it was weird because at first, the technology to burn your own disc wasn't in anyone's computer that you knew, unless you had like access to somebody. So I remember when people first started burning CDs, it was a bit of like, oh shit, he has a CD. By the way, can I cuss on this?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, okay. I should have asked that up front. But yeah, that was a huge deal. So when you made the leap from cassette to CD, that was a big deal. Never mind the iTunes stuff. But when it did go from, physical format to digital, streaming services weren't really a thing yet. That was just like, I don't think that was a thing. Like you could get your songs though, like, but you weren't listening. There was no Pandora that I knew of, even at that time. And there was something else, some like FM something, you might remember it. But so it ended up, at first, I think it was met with a lot of resistance because everyone was like, how the hell do we compete with people who know how to get their music on those platforms? Because I think originally to get your music on there, it was kind of, you had to be with like a label or something. Like this was before TuneCore or DistroKid or any of this kind of stuff, which kind of made the emergence, in my opinion, of underground hip hop and connecting with people who understood how to get your music on streaming platforms sort of an important goal for everyone. Like I ended up connecting with this record label called Universal Music. They're still around to this day, but now they're a promotions company. And strangely enough, I was touring around a lot with the cat that was like the head of CD Baby or like in charge of something at CD Baby. And through my label, I connected with them, touring, and they were very quick and easy, with grabbing people that they knew. If you grabbed their music, they would put it on CD Baby, which put it on all of the streaming platforms as well. Yeah. And I don't even know if people know about CD Baby to this day, but
I think a little bit, huge. Yeah.
And so it was like, what was it like? It was scary because you felt like you couldn't compete, but you also wanted to get on those platforms. The business aspect of it wasn't even really like, no one really thought about that necessarily. To be honest with you, though, like if you really want to look at it, prior to that, I feel like the vast majority of us got our music on P2P sites, like peer-to-peer sites. And so you really wanted people to be checking for your stuff on sites like undergroundhiphop.com, and you wanted them to be looking your shit up on Napster. You wanted them to like really want to dig for it. And like back then, a lot of the underground heads that I knew were downloading Cage records, and just, visionaries, like living legends. They would just go to these peer-to-peer sites and download them P2P. And I think I got my stuff on there pretty early. And if you could get that was like almost like the mixtape trunk scene for a while, like these weird Napster. And there's another one. Do you remember the name of the other one that was huge?
I don't know. I loved listening. It was like last summer they came out with that podcast called The Blog Era that they did. Did you ever listen to that?
No.
It's great. It's all about like the turn of the internet, kind of how things transitioned, and then like Dat Piff live mixtapes, and then like Nah Right, and sites like that. It's all about that whole era of hip hop.
Yeah.
It was one of my favorite podcast series. But
forums were important too, like internet forums. If you could get your music to be cracking in the forums, because if people were trading your music around and posting it in forums and stuff, you were like, that was kind of like, for the internet aspect of it, you were kind of on. And then it went to stuff like MySpace. Like when you started harnessing the power of uploading your stuff to your MySpace page. If you had I remember I had a personal page, and then I like messaged Tom directly, and I'm sure it was a team, but it was like, I was like, hey, how do I turn my page into a music page? And they literally responded back with just a button. And I clicked the button, and it converted my page into a music page. It seems like a made-up story, but that's real. And then I uploaded my music on there, and man, I gotta say, like, MySpace really was responsible for a lot of my success, because I was getting hundreds and then at some point thousands of downloads a day, because people could download your music straight from your player, And I had like a bunch of like homies that would just like copy paste the HTML and post it all over people's pages. Like we were just destroying the internet with that shit.
Yeah.
And then using those bulletin boards. So what was it like? Short story long, I would say scary at first until we figured out how to use it.
Yeah.
And then now it's sort of like another necessary evil until the next thing comes out.
Yeah. And it feels like we've gotten even like, I feel like every year we get 100 more platforms that are new and that we have to kind of learn too, or that at least people want us to learn. So I always ask that for like the audience, but also for me, because I feel like I didn't get to experience a lot of that stuff because I'm 27. I feel like when I started to get into hip hop, it was around like 06, 07. I was probably like 9 or 10. So by the time that happened, a lot of stuff was already ending and a lot of new things were beginning. Like when I jumped in on the MySpace stuff, it was ending pretty much, you know what I mean? So I remember like certain blogs and certain things like that being popular. But it's great to hear like everybody's experience in their era and like where they came up at too. So that's super awesome. And as far as like music production in general for you, I hate asking like the top 5 producers. Just give me some influences of like who you were listening to coming up, or even like, in the past few years, who inspires you as far as production goes, and who are you learning from?
Back in the day, it was definitely some of the production that I listened to wouldn't be production, but just the music. It was like Anita Baker and like Duran Duran, Depeche Mode, The Cure, and then everything from that to like Nights Arab. Stuff my brothers were listening to a lot, like Alien, Sex Pistols, and just like, or Alien Sex Fiend, and then the Sex Pistols, and then like all these other groups in between. But then on the hip hop tip, it was like Ice Cube, like I was really into Ice Cube as a kid, loved Ice Cube, and then DJ Quick, a lot of other stuff, and then of course Too Short, and then it got into like Group Home, and then like Wu-Tang. All that kind of stuff. Of course, the RZA is important. And when it gets into like production, like DJ Shadow was important to me, Dan the Automator, and I'm trying to think of other stuff because there's some obvious ones, but then, obviously Dilla, that's kind of a staple. And then a lot of underground producers, Paris, Sax was really dope. He produced a lot of cool stuff for like Bus Driver and all these other cats. And then Life Rexall, who's crazy. I've seen him reemerge now on the scene, like in the koala space. It's so weird because I don't think a lot of those guys understand who that guy is. Like, he's super accomplished and really good, but he's just kind of mellow, chilling, doing his thing. Yeah. And, there's a bunch of them. I could go on kind of like forever with it. And then just nowadays, you asked, these days, it's the people that I'm meeting through doing this project, people like yourself, like, your music's really good. And then, like, Noctimus Prime is somebody that I'm really digging. He just won our Friendly Fade beat battle that we had. As a matter of fact, this is a reason why we have other people judge it, because I'm saying, like, I'm already like, I think Noctimus is one of the best. Yeah. And then, of course, everyone in between. There's like Phil Spector. There's what is this? I don't know. There's a bunch of guys. I don't want to it's one of those things where like I'll forget. Of course, there's Pablo Station, New Rudist. There's a ton of people that are really good that are out there.
Yeah. Hey there. Hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I just wanted to take a quick minute out to let you know about a couple different ways that you can support the podcast. One of the ways is by clicking that support the podcast button within your streaming platform. That is if you want to be a monthly supporter of the show. You can contribute either 99 cents, $5, or $10 a month. So that's the first way, and that's the more traditional way that we've had now for the last couple years. The other method that we actually just recently introduced is from our good friends over at Ko-fi. Ko-fi is a virtual tip jar. We have set our limit to a minimum of $10, but you can go make one-time, one-off donations. So if you visit ko-fi.com/the Proven Knowledge Podcast, you'll be able to donate. And all these different forms of donation go towards getting new guests every single week, getting potential sponsors on board to do giveaways, and overall just making the show better for you guys. So if you want to do that Ko-fi link, it's ko-fi.com/the Proven Knowledge Podcast. Otherwise, again, look for that support the podcast button in your streaming platform if you'd like to be a monthly supporter. And I just want to say thank you guys for your contributions. And without further ado, let's get back into the episode. And it's crazy because there's just so many producers now too, and people that are doing it, and people involved, and there's never a lack of talent for sure. And I definitely want to dive into the Beatcast a little bit, because that's really how I discovered you and discovered the platform in general. I don't know if you were the one that followed me from the page. Someone followed me from the Beatcast page, and I remember just checking out all the stuff you guys were doing. And I was like, I want to participate in this. Like, this is super cool. I did a few of the challenges. I think I came in like at the tail end of the season, so I didn't get to do the full season, but I had a blast doing it. So tell us about the platform a little bit. Like, how did it get started, and kind of what's the whole purpose behind it and the meaning behind it?
So the Beatcast started as the podcast portion of a sample challenge that a dude named DJ Organic put together called Sunday School Beats. And he was doing that on his own during, I think prior to and then during the pandemic. And he's a working DJ, like an actual working DJ. He doesn't do anything else. So when the pandemic hit, he was like, we were just chatting and stuff. And he's like, dude, I'm basically a fry guy if I'm not a DJ. I don't know what I'm going to do. And so I'm like, well, look, you're doing this Sunday School Beats thing. Let me jump in there with you, and I'll help you turn it into something that's a little bit bigger. And, we've worked together. We go way back. I've known this guy since like 2000, 2001. And so he's like, yeah, let's do it. So we jump in, and I, basically turned it into more of he was just doing the challenge by himself. He was just doing it on his own. So I was like, let's open this up, invite people in, and create a podcast around it. And I sort of have always wanted to do stuff like this. Well, like, anything I do, I like to try to bring as many people in, like even with Avenue of the Arts back in the day. Locally, that's what I've done, is bring a whole bunch of other artists together. And I'm like, it's almost like safety in numbers. I'm like, let's do this together as a group. Because, more people, more resources, larger volume with your signal. Yeah. So that's what we did. And he was like very like, this isn't going to work. No one's going to care. And of course it worked. You know, everybody, it was a blast. Like, right from then we just leveraged the fact that we know a lot of like talented, cool people. So we're just asking our friends to come on and be our guests in the beginning. And that first year out, we did every single week, we did an episode. So we did 52 or 54, how many ever that works out to. And, you know, we sort of created the structure around it. Then we went into the second season. Organic had gotten a job, so he like moved on, and I kept it running. And just sort of, instead of the Sunday school thing, because he was pulling religious records and so using gospel records and religious type of records from all over the place, but it was Sunday school beats. You know, that's the whole idea. I was always sort of like, let's just make it any sample, you know, and he was very against that. But as the Beatcast, because it was the Sunday school Beatcast, you know, the Beatcast was the podcast portion. So I took as the Beatcast, I'm like, well, we're just going to open it up now. So like, we'll have guest people pull records, you know, just ways to have more people interact. And it sort of came out of that necessity of trying to help him, you know, put together some money. You know, it's like, we could monetize that stuff, you know, there's merch and all kinds of stuff, you know, we had built this huge library on YouTube of voice stuff. It's sad too, because I think he may have deleted it now, so you can't even check the Sunday School Beat stuff, but we still have all of our archive stuff. But the idea is that, you know, you can monetize the ad space on that. Yeah. And so then we kind of did that also as a way of sort of like staying sane during COVID, because, you know, everybody was losing their mind. And it really worked. Like, I can't tell you how many messages I got from people that were like, dude, this is so important to me. And like, it really got me through some tough times. And then I sort of, at that point, when I you know, I could have like take it or leave it kind of thing to continue to do it. But once I had those messages during the break from season 1 to 2, that's what put the fire in my ass. Like, dude, this shit's important to people. And like, this is bigger than some, you know, this shit matters, you know. It's like, I got to take this seriously and like really, because people will message me even now, like, how the hell do you like find time to do this? Because it's a lot of shit. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, because it's important to me, and plus I'm good at time management, so like, I'll just figure it out. And then I have, you know, people helping now. But so it came out of that necessity to stay creative and stay sane. And then now it's a matter of, just because the world's back to being open, it's a matter of staying sharp, I think. And it's also community. Community matters, man. It's like, you know, I came up in the era of hip hop where it was super ruthless and everyone was just like cutthroat and just competitive as hell. And in this space, it's not that way. You know, even with our competition series, it's the friendly fade. You know, it's like everyone's trying to help each other get better, and everyone's trying to find a way to, I guess, like, connect and get their music out there. You know, like I can't tell you how many times now I hear about people working together that found each other through the Beatcast. You know, it's kind of crazy. You know, it's an honor to have that, you know, be the space. Plus, it's just fun. It's like, if you're not a nerd, you won't get this, but it's like Dungeons and Dragons with beats. Like, you know, if you ever play D&D, it's like you get together and you're got a bunch of your friends at the table, you're rolling dice. It's just something you do like maybe every Thursday or something, and where you can disconnect from all the other shit. That's what the Beatcast is it's you know, it's a beat making workshop for nerds. You know what I'm saying? It's like, some people call it a safe space for old men and women, and it's true. It's just like, it's cool, man. So that's what it came out as. And we're going into our 5th season this January, which is kind of crazy to think we've been doing this 5 years now.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. And I love that too, about what you said about community building, because like you said, it is that important. And then when you're able to build up a community with people that, you know, are giving you that genuine feedback too, saying, yeah, this is a part of my life now, it's like, why would you not want to keep going? So I'm grateful to hear that, you know, that's been your experience. And it's really like finding your people, you know what I mean? Like, once you find your people, you're like, I gotta keep going with this, keep doing it. And you mentioned you have, you know, a lot of people involved now directly that are a part of, you know, every stream you do and every event you do at this point. So you want to shout those people out? Let us know who those people are.
Yeah. So the Beatcast, the cast of the Beatcast is it's Mind of Modium. So that's Bree, and me and him go way back to like grade school days. So it's kind of cool that we're, you know, still hanging out and like able to do this project together. And then you have RTC Shogun, which is somebody I have some music history with you. You know, we were like on opposite sides of the spectrum. We're both from Phoenix, though, or he's from like a different city in Arizona, but I've always known of him, always respected his music. We never thought we would be in a project together. It's kind of wild, but it's kind of cool to be working with him now. And then there's Elena, who she has like a massive like social media. You know, it's like social media marketing and like a bunch of other types of stuff, photography company out of Canada. And she's huge in the community. Like the way she shows up in the community space, she's always supporting and she's always there. Plus she makes beats as well. And it's like one of those things where she's our link to the people who don't necessarily like do this all the time. Mm-hmm. So like the people who don't do the nerd speak stuff like we do, you know? So she's like very relatable in that space because most people don't make beats, you know? Yeah. And then there's Delvon Watson. So Mr. Watson is a cat that we found again through just doing the project. And he, you know, you just meet people and you click, you know, you're like, you're a cool cat. You can communicate well. And he's very opinionated and hilarious. So it's good to have him on the show as well, sort of getting into, you know, he has like a spicy element to it, I would say. Mm-hmm. But that's the cast. And then there's myself.
Yeah. I got to say, I've seen Mr. Watson's beats pop up on a lot of compilations the last few months, and I love his stuff, honestly. I might have to get him on the show for sure. I might have to get all of them on the show at some point. But yeah, man, I think that's awesome, and it feels like you have people that kind of cover all the bases too. Like every corner you need, you got those people there. And I can tell just from watching your guys' stuff too that they all care just as much about what you're doing too, which 100%. Is super important. So you mentioned obviously you're heading into like the 5th season coming up here, which it's crazy that 2025 is like right around the corner at this point. We're in like the 4th quarter almost of the year. So that's coming up, but is there anything else you want to let people know about that they could be on the lookout for, maybe even before the year ends?
So with the Beatcast, when we go on these breaks, we try to stay as out of the way as we can because we know everyone's making music even outside of the project. Some of the stuff from the project that we, you know, the Beatcast, and then some of the stuff they do in private, they'll put it together and put releases out. And early on, we learned that people were like, dude, I like participating, but I don't like missing an episode. And can you guys like take a break so we can, you know, like there's like 7 or 8 people that were like, we want to put a record out. When you hear that enough times, it's like, that's a good idea because I do the same thing, you know? So with the Beatcast, nothing until January, but then when January comes, of course, you'll see it right before January hits, all the promo will start, you know? And it's going to be the same Beatcast that everybody knows and loves. It'll be the usual deal. For myself, I have another instrumental record that I'm going to put out. And I had a title, you know, it's like the title is tentative, but mainly it doesn't matter what the title is, you know, it's like, it is what it is, but it'll be on my Instagram, which is at ILL_AL_. I used to have the regular ILL, but somebody else has it. Man. I let it go, and then somebody grabbed it. And what's wild is when I went and found their ILL page, they also make beats. Super random.
Wow.
But they haven't posted in years. And like, I hope they're okay.
Yeah. I was going to say, usually it's someone that like has no posts and they have like a profile picture of like a tree. And it's like, you can't get that name back ever because you'll never hear from them. But
I messaged them. I was like, hey man, if you're not going to use it, can I get that back?
Yeah.
But it's too late. I put this name on too many things, but it is what it is.
Happens. Yeah, it happens. Yeah. Well, I'm definitely excited for all that, man, for sure. And we're down to the last few questions here. These are more life-related ones. These are ones I ask on every episode as well. And the first one is, if you could go back 10 years ago, give yourself a piece of advice, or maybe not change anything at all, what do you think you would do?
If I went back 10 years in time, this would be, I guess, 1 year after my daughter was born. So I would say, knowing what I know now, I would just be like, you know, what advice would I give myself? Probably just to relax and not stress so much. It's all going to be all right.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to figure it out, you're going to be a great dad. Just like, you know, has been and is my most important thing in my life, is to make sure that I'm like doing that part, you know, well. So, and it all turned out well. So if I go back 10 years, I'd be like, you know, don't give yourself a heart attack over it. Just relax.
Yeah. I think we can all give ourselves that advice from time to time, for sure. Yeah. So, and if we flip that, then and
my mom has this saying. She's Southern,
Yeah.
And there's a saying that like worrying is like a rocking chair. It'll give you something to do, but you won't go anywhere.
Yeah.
It's like a really good, perfect.
I love that.
Yeah.
If we flip that, then and we say 10 years from now, where do you think you envision yourself musically, the Beatcast, and in life in general?
Musically, hopefully by that point, 10 years is a long time. So I would hope that in 10 years, because right now I skipped a long period of time of the beat making portion because I'm mainly like a lyricist, like an MC, but I set all that aside when I was doing the dad thing. So I, as I came back into beat making in 2019, my goal was to just stick with it until I get better. And I feel like since 2019 to now, I've gotten so much better, and I have all the stepping stones there so I can and I do sometimes I'll go back and like see where I came from to now.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping 10 years from now, I had better be in a spot where I'm like super happy with the stuff that I'm making all the time. So, just basically just improving, also learning the keys more. Like I want to be able to play riffs really smoothly. Outside of like with the Beatcast, hopefully within 10 years, we are on a much larger platform. The thing about this is it's such a niche thing. And I know for a fact with the right personality types, the masses will come and watch people do this beat shit. It's just that producers are introverts by nature. They're like DJs where they pick up their records and they go into their dirty, dusty rooms, and they make their beats quietly. They're not really out there. But that's the thing. I'm coming from a different space where I had to be like up front, as like a lyricist, as an MC, you have to be like, you have to handle it, right? Yeah. You have a bunch of people you get to show up for. So I think I'm trying to leverage a bit of that ability when I'm doing this beat making shit. And with this platform, I'm hoping to be able to, by then, be on a larger scale. I don't know if that means like joining a multi-channel network or maybe jumping into a talent agency or maybe a label picks us up and we do the podcast from their space. But I want to leverage it to help people like yourself and myself and all the other people out there that participate. I want to be able to leverage that to put them on a larger platform.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I want to be able to say, cool, now that we're on this larger platform and people are checking with us to see who can I get to score this project or who can I get to put this song on my commercial. Instead of having for them to go to like these licensing libraries, it'd be cool if I could be like, well, dude, this is what we do. Grab one of these cats from this, this space and make that lucrative for people who otherwise maybe wouldn't have made money off of their music. And then personally, that was hell of a lot more boring, honestly. But outside of the dad thing, I'm excited to see what my daughter's doing in 10 years. Like, that's the thing that's most exciting. The rest of my shit's boring.
Yeah.
It's just like, the usual life stuff. My kid's exciting to me, and it's cool seeing her grow up and do what she does.
Yeah, man. That's awesome, man. And I love what you said about, being able to give back in that way as well to the community, like we talked about earlier. And I don't think there's any other, better way to give back than to do things like that. So it's going to be exciting to see it grow for sure. And do you have any final words of wisdom today for the listeners?
I think the only words of wisdom that I can possibly share is the old saying, plan your work and then work your plan. That's like the main thing that you got to do with whatever you're doing, whether it be a music project or in your own life. If you just put together a loosely knit plan and allow for yourself to practice non-attachment, like things are going to ebb and flow and, learn from the pitfalls. That's the main thing. And just don't give up.
Yeah.
If I could, I guess that's another piece of advice. If we would have been back 20 years, I'd tell myself, maybe don't stop doing music, you know what I mean? But we did 10. So don't give up and plan your work your plan.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, Alan, man, I got to say thank you so much again for, wanting to be on the show today. I felt like I learned a lot about you that I didn't know. So thanks for that. And if you ever want to come back, man, feel free, and I'll be on the lookout for everything you got going with the Beatcast and your music and all that good stuff. So thanks again, man.
Awesome. Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks everyone for listening today. That was episode 225. We'll be back this time next week. As always, hit that support button on your podcast streaming platform if you'd like to send any funds. And feel free to leave us that 5-star rating if you enjoyed today's episode. And before we get out of here, I want to let you guys know that I'm doing a personal Twitch stream on twitch.tv/AnthonyChurch24 every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Just started the stream recently. It's going to be kind of an extension of the podcast. So if you're on Twitch or you just want to have another way of getting involved in the Proven Knowledge community, I'm going to be going over some different topics like musicians' mental health, project planning, content creation, and really just talking about my experiences as a music maker as well. It's more of a one-on-one version of what you hear on this show. We might be doing giveaways, have other guests as well eventually, but just something to keep in mind. So once again, that's twitch.tv/AnthonyChurch24. We'll be going live every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. But until next week, once again, thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you then.